There's a kind of exhaustion sleep can't touch. Not the honest fatigue of effort, but a heavy fog that settles under your ribs and makes ordinary life feel strangely difficult. You wake up, and it's already there. You drink coffee, and it stays. You try to think positive, and it watches you from behind your thoughts like a quiet shadow. Often, that weight isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that you're porous. Most people learn this by accident. You finish a call with someone you love, and suddenly your mind is racing with their problems as if you've been appointed to solve them. You leave a crowded place and return home irritable or sad without any clear reason, as though you walked through an emotional storm and it clung to your clothes. You sit with a friend for 10 minutes and walk away drained, even though the conversation sounded perfectly normal. When you're sensitive, you've been trained to justify this. You call it empathy. You call it caring. You call it being a good person. And sometimes it is. But sometimes it's something older and more binding, a pattern of absorption that your nervous system learned long before your adult mind had language for it. Your body is a tuning fork. It reads tone before words. It adjusts breath before beliefs. In a room full of people, your system is constantly scanning for safety. Micro-expressions, pauses, shifts in posture, the subtle electric weather of someone's mood. That isn't superstition. It's how humans survive each other. If you grew up around unpredictable emotion, you learn to scan harder. If love felt conditional, you learn to anticipate. If you were praised for being mature, helpful, the strong one, you learn to carry. And carrying became so normal, you stopped noticing the moment you lifted someone else's load. Psychology has names for this: enmeshment, people-pleasing, parentification, hypervigilance. Esoteric schools have their own: chords, attachments, imprints, astral residue. Different dictionaries, same experience. You feel pulled into someone else's inner weather, and after enough repetitions, you begin to mistake that pull for your identity. In myth, this is the moment a traveler accepts a gift and unknowingly accepts a vow. In modern life, it looks like a polite, sure, no problem, said while your stomach drops. It looks like staying quiet to keep the peace while your inner world does the work of everyone else's discomfort. It looks like hearing, "You're the only one I can talk to," and feeling honored, right before you feel trapped. These moments form agreements. Not written agreements, but reflex agreements. Signed with silence. Sealed by guilt. Renewed every time you swallow your truth to avoid someone's disappointment. The old word for this is contract, because a contract is an exchange. You take on their emotional weight, and in return you receive closeness, approval, a brief sense of safety in the room. You carry the tension, and the tension disappears, at least on the surface. Your nervous system learns this works, and it repeats the move. At first, the contract feels noble. You tell yourself you're loyal. You tell yourself you're strong. You tell yourself you can handle it. But borrowed burdens don't stay light. They accumulate. What begins as one small rescue becomes a lifestyle of rescue. What begins as support becomes responsibility. And responsibility has a seductive feeling: control. If I carry their pain, maybe I can fix it. If I hold their anger, maybe I can prevent it. If I keep everyone steady, maybe no one will leave. Most people don't think these sentences out loud. The body thinks them for you. It's an ancient bargain, often born in childhood. I will suffer now, so I won't be abandoned later. That's why the burdens that aren't yours can feel so personal. They're tied to your belonging. You can see the contract in the body before you see in the mind. A name appears on your phone and your chest tightens. You walk into a family gathering and your shoulders rise as if you're putting on armor you didn't choose. Someone is disappointed and guilt blooms in you like it's your job to repair their feelings. These sensations aren't character flaws. They are signatures. They are the body remembering an agreement the mind never formally made. The mind will protect the contract because it once kept you safe. It will say, "It's not a big deal." It will say, "I'm overreacting." It will say, "They need me." It will turn self-erasure into virtue, because virtue feels safer than admitting you're trapped. Here's the hinge where everything changes. Empathy is not the same as absorption. Healthy empathy lets you be near suffering without becoming it. You can care while staying clear. But when empathy has no edges, it turns into a kind of possession. You don't just understand their anxiety. You start living inside it. You don't just hear their sadness. You carry it in your bloodstream. You leave the interaction with less access to your own center. In a language of depth psychology, people project parts of themselves, fear, shame, longing, onto others, and a sensitive person can receive those projections like mail addressed to the wrong house. In spiritual language, you might call that a cord. Either way, the effect is real. You walk away with weight that didn't originate in you. Now, the temptation at this point is to harden, to close, to become protected by becoming numb. But numbness isn't sovereignty. It's exile. The goal is simpler and more sacred. Ownership. What is mine to feel? What is mine to do? What is mine to carry? This isn't selfishness. It's sanity. It's spiritual hygiene. It's the difference between compassion and self-sacrifice. You can stand beside someone's fire without throwing yourself into it to prove you love them. So begin with the most practical kind of magic, awareness that doesn't flinch. When heaviness arrives, pause before you call it your personality. Don't build a story about how wrong you are. Ask your body gently, when did this begin? Often, it will point to a moment your mind skipped. The meeting where you said yes while you meant no. The conversation where you became the container for someone else's panic. The room where you performed okayness to avoid conflict. Then ask the sharper question, what did I just agree to? Maybe you agreed to be the peacekeeper. Maybe you agreed to be the emotional translator for people who refuse to speak directly. Maybe you agreed to be endlessly available. Notice that you don't have to hate anyone to end an agreement. Blame keeps you entangled. Ownership frees you. And you can start returning what isn't yours without a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it begins inside, like unclasping a hidden buckle. You sit in stillness and imagine handing back the emotion the way you would hand back a bag that was mistakenly placed in your hands. You don't throw it. You don't slam it down. You simply return it, with respect for their humanity and respect for your own. Fear may rise. If I stop caring, will I still be loved? If I stop being useful, will I still belong? That fear is not a prophecy. It's an echo. Let it speak, but don't let it sign your next contract. Under the fear, something quieter appears, space, a small clearing, a sense of coming back to your own skin. Not emptiness, homecoming. And that is the threshold we step onto now. Because once you can tell the difference between what is yours and what you've borrowed, you're no longer helpless in the exchange. You become a conscious gate. The next time heaviness arrives, treat it like a visitor, not a verdict. Pause, feel, and ask, as if you're speaking a sacred password into the dark. Is this actually mine? And once you've asked that question, is this actually mine? You begin to notice something quietly shocking. Your life has been written in invisible ink. Not by fate, not by some external enemy, but by the tiny, repeated moments where you became a container for what another person couldn't hold. You can feel those moments like faint grooves in the nervous system. You can sense them like old fingerprints on the inside of your chest. And now, with that single question, you've done something dangerous in the best way. You've stepped out of the trance. The old myths have a way of recognizing that moment. They don't describe it with therapy language or social science, but they describe it accurately. A human being wakes up inside their own life and realizes they've been carrying an unnamed burden. In those stories, the next thing that happens is never a lecture. It's an encounter. A guide appears, not to save you, but to teach you how to stand in your own boundary without turning to stone. In the Egyptian current of myth, that guide often takes the form of a figure who is not loud, not dramatic, not driven by impulse. He doesn't roar. He doesn't seduce. He doesn't threaten. He measures. He records. He makes the invisible legible. Thoth, even the way he's imagined, tells you what kind of power he carries. An ibis head, a long curved beak like a stylus shaped by nature itself. Sometimes a baboon, watchful at the edge of dawn. a reed pen in hand, a palette, a scroll. He is the one who writes down what is true when everyone else is shouting about what they feel. And if you listen closely, that is already boundary medicine. Because one of the most subtle ways we lose ourselves is by confusing emotion with truth. Someone else's urgency becomes your instruction. Someone else's fear becomes your responsibility. Someone else's disappointment becomes your guilt. The room fills with feeling, and feeling becomes law. Thoth does something different. He doesn't deny emotion. He doesn't mock it. He simply refuses to let it rewrite reality without witnessing. There's a reason scribes were sacred. Writing isn't just communication. In the old world, writing was containment. It was the act of taking a force that could flood and giving it a channel. Taking something that could possess and giving it a boundary. Even today, when you put words to something that has been haunting you, it changes shape. It becomes graspable. It becomes something you can hold at arm's length without pretending it isn't there. The ancients knew this, not as a self-help tip, but as a kind of technology. Words were not only sounds. They were forms. They had edges. They could bind chaos into order. And Thoth, as the keeper of divine words, stands right at the meeting point between what is felt and what is real. Imagine him not as a distant god on a museum wall, but as an atmosphere you step into. A temple interior where the light is low and steady, not flickering like a nervous mind. Stone that holds coolness. The scent of resin. The soft scrape of reed on papyrus. And in that calm, you realize something. A scribe doesn't absorb what he records. He touches grief with ink, not with his bloodstream. He witnesses anger without swallowing it. He listens to the confession without taking on the sentence. That's not coldness. That's skill. In many myths, Thoth is a mediator, a translator between worlds. And translation itself is a kind of boundary act. To translate, you must be close enough to understand, but separate enough to not be consumed. You must hold meaning without becoming it. You must keep your own mind clear enough to carry a message across a threshold. If you've ever felt drained after supporting someone, it's often because you try to translate without the boundary. You try to carry their entire storm across your own nervous system. Thoth's way is different. He carries the message, not the weather. There is a particular scene in the Egyptian imagination that reveals his function with almost unbearable clarity. A hall of judgment, not in the simplistic moral sense, but in the deeper sense of weighing what is true. A heart is measured against a feather. Ma'at's feather, the symbol of cosmic order, balance, and rightness. And there is Thoth, present as the one who records the result. Not as the one who panics. Not as the one who begs. Not as the one who barges into the process to fix the outcome. He writes. Think about what that implies. In a moment where an entire destiny hangs in the balance, his role is not to merge with the fear of the one being weighed. His role is to keep the ledger clean, to keep the truth intact, to make sure that what happens is known, not distorted. This is the opposite of the empathic trap. When you absorb other people, you distort truth without meaning to. You start reacting to signals that aren't yours. You start making choices based on emotions you didn't generate. You start apologizing for things you didn't do. You become a living alteration of reality in service of someone else's comfort. Thoth, by contrast, is the calm witness that lets reality be reality. And in mythic terms, writing is the spell that creates that witness. The Egyptians had a concept of Heka, often translated as magic, but it's closer to the idea of an activating force, a sacred mechanism by which the world is shaped. Words were not merely descriptive. They were creative. If spoken words could summon, written words could stabilize. Spoken words could flare. Written words could hold. This is why inscriptions mattered. Why names mattered. Why symbols mattered. To name something is to define it. To define something is to place it inside a boundary. And to place it inside a boundary is to stop it from being everywhere at once. That is exactly what you need when you've been carrying what isn't yours. Because borrowed burdens are foggy. They come in without a label. They sit inside you like a stranger wearing your clothes. And the first step in reclaiming yourself is not to fight harder. It's to name what is happening with enough clarity that it can no longer hide. Thoth's mythic authority is inseparable from naming. In many magical traditions, to know the true name of a thing is to have influence over it, not by domination, but by contact with its essence. When something is unnamed, it behaves like a haunting. When something is named, it behaves like a guest. It can be greeted, questioned, and sent home. If you've ever written down a fear and felt it shrink, you've practiced this without calling it myth. You've taken a shapeless force and given it a shape. You placed a line around it. You've said, "This is fear," instead of saying, "This is me." And there is more, because the written word isn't only a label. It's a boundary between inner and outer worlds. When you write, you move something from inside your body to outside your body. You create a small distance. And distance is where choice is born. This is why, in the mythic sense, Thoth is not just a scribe. He is a maker of space. There's a hidden elegance in the discipline of writing, too. The ancient scribe didn't simply spill thoughts onto the page like a flood. He practiced form. He trained the hand to obey the mind, and the mind to obey clarity. Even hieroglyphs, for all their beauty, are structured. They are images with grammar. They are art with rules. They are meaning that has agreed to be legible. Notice how different that is from emotional contagion. Emotional contagion is raw. It spreads. It has no edges. It leaps from person to person like fire catching dry grass. In a family system, in a workplace, in a friendship, one person's unprocessed anxiety can become everyone's background music. The sensitive person, especially, becomes the amplifier. Not because they're weak, but because they're tuned. They pick up the signal. They broadcast it through their own body. Thoth's medicine is not to shut off sensitivity. It's to give sensitivity a script, a vessel, a form that can hold what is true without becoming what is chaotic. There's also a deeper layer in the image of the scribe's palette. In some depictions, you see black and red, inks used for different purposes. Black for the body of the text, red for emphasis, warnings, the start of something important. Whether or not you take that literally, the symbolism lands, discernment. Not everything should be written in the same ink. Not everything should have the same weight. Not everything belongs in your heart. When you live without discernment, you treat every emotion as an emergency, every request as an obligation, every disappointment as your failure. Your inner world becomes a page where anyone can scribble anytime they want. But to live as a scribe of your own life is to decide what is recorded, what is emphasized, and what is not yours to hold at all. This is where the myth becomes very practical without losing its grandeur. Because the energy boundary you're seeking is not a force field that makes you unreachable. That kind of protection often turns into isolation, and isolation is its own prison. The boundary Thoth teaches is a boundary of truth, a boundary of definition, a boundary of clean witnessing. It sounds almost too simple until you realize how rare it is. Clean witnessing means you can be present with someone's pain and not take it into your identity. It means you can hear their story without signing your nervous system as collateral. It means you can sit in the same room with someone's anger and still know where you end. In myth, Thoth does not need to prove himself by carrying what is not his. He serves the cosmos by keeping the record straight, by keeping the measures honest, by refusing to let chaos blur the lines. And if you let this image work on you for a moment, really let it in, you may feel something shift, as if you've been holding your breath for years and didn't know it. As if your system has been waiting for permission to stop translating everyone else's storms into your own language. So imagine Thoth offering you something, not mystical in a flashy way, but sacred in its simplicity. A reed pen, a blank page, a quiet nod that says, you do not have to carry what you can witness. Because when you witness clearly, you can love clearly. And when you love clearly, you stop confusing closeness with fusion. You begin to sense the difference between compassion and collapse. And that difference, once you can feel it, is the beginning of a new kind of power. Not power over others, but power over your own permeability. The ability to let life touch you without life owning you. The ability to be open without being invaded. In the next movement of this story, we'll turn the lantern slightly and look at why energies stick in the first place. Why some people's moods cling to you. Why certain relationships feel like spiritual gravity. Why the mind and the unseen seem to mirror each other so perfectly. But for now, stay with the temple image. Stay with the steady hand. Stay with the scribe who is close enough to truth to record it, and separate enough from chaos to remain himself. That is the first lesson of Thoth's boundary magic. The page is not the wound. The witness is not the burden. And you, at your deepest level, were never meant to be a dumping ground for other people's unspoken weather. If Thoth is the one who keeps the record straight, then the next mystery is obvious. Why does the record get smudged in the first place? Why do certain emotions seep into you as if you were made of cloth and they were made of ink? Why can a single conversation leave you carrying a mood that feels implanted, like a foreign seed dropped into your chest? This is where psychology and esotericism, two languages that often argue, begin to describe the same landscape from different angles. One talks about nervous systems and attachment wounds. The other talks about chords and fields and resonance. But when you listen for the pattern beneath the words, you realize they're pointing at one mechanism. The way human beings lock onto each other when safety, belonging, and identity are on the line. The simplest way to say it is this: energies stick where there is unfinished business. A feeling doesn't cling to you because you're too empathic in some vague moral sense. It clings because it finds a matching surface inside you. It finds a place that already has a similar frequency, a place that recognizes it, a place that has been waiting unknowingly for that exact type of emotion to arrive. Psychology would call this a schema, a pattern formed early about love, danger, responsibility, worth. Esoteric traditions might call it an imprint, a wound in the aura, a receptive pocket. You don't have to pick a side. You can simply notice the lived truth. Some things bounce off you, and some things hook in. The hook is the clue. Think of the last time someone came to you panicking. Their words might have been about their job, or their relationship, or money. But underneath the story was a vibration, urgency, fear, helplessness. And what happened inside you? Did your body stay steady? Or did your breath shorten, your chest tighten, your mind begin to run? If the panic hooked into you, it's rarely because you care too much. It's because your system has a history with panic. It knows the script. It has played this scene before, maybe long ago, maybe so early you can't even remember the first time. This is the psychological doorway. Your nervous system is not neutral. It is conditioned. It is trained by experience. It has learned what to expect from closeness and what closeness demands from you. If closeness used to require that you manage someone else's emotions, your system will interpret their distress as a call to duty, not a choice, a duty. And duties are sticky. Now the esoteric doorway opens beside it, almost seamlessly. Because if your nervous system is conditioned, then your attention is conditioned too. And attention is energy. Where your attention goes, your field goes. Where your field goes, connection happens. Some connections are light, like passing eye contact in a cafe. Some are heavy, like a hook through the ribs. The heaviness is usually the combination of attention plus fear. Fear is glue. Fear of conflict, fear of being disliked, fear of abandonment, fear of failing someone. It doesn't matter if the fear is conscious. In fact, the most adhesive fear is the kind you don't notice. You think you're being nice, but your body is making a bargain. You think you're being supportive, but your nervous system is chasing control. You think you're being strong, but your inner child is begging, please don't leave. This is why the energy of other people can feel like it enters you. Because your system opens its gates to prevent loss. And once those gates open, a few things happen at once. First, there's emotional contagion, a well-studied phenomenon. Humans naturally synchronize. Heart rates, facial expressions, tone of voice, posture. These are social mechanisms. When you sit with someone, you unconsciously mirror them. It's how bonding happens. It's how trust happens. But if you have weak boundaries, synchronization becomes takeover. The mirroring doesn't stop when the conversation ends. It continues in your body like a song stuck in your head. Second, there's projection. This is one of the most important bridges between psychology and the occult, because it's essentially a description of how unseen content travels. When someone cannot tolerate a part of themselves, anger, neediness, shame, desire, they often push it out of awareness. But it doesn't vanish. It seeks a container. It finds someone who can hold it. And the sensitive person often becomes that container because they're already practiced at holding what others reject. The projected emotion lands in you. And here's the crucial detail. It often arrives with a sense of certainty. You don't feel like you picked up something. You feel like you realized something. Suddenly you're angry or guilty or ashamed, and it seems self-generated. That is why it's so difficult to catch. Projection wears your clothes. In esoteric language, this is like an energetic parcel delivered to your doorstep. If you open it without checking the name, it becomes yours by default. Third, there's the bond itself, attachment. In psychology, attachment describes how we regulate our emotions through connection. A secure attachment allows you to stay yourself while being close. An insecure attachment tends to merge, chase, or numb. In spiritual terms, insecure attachment behaves like a cord that tightens when one person becomes unstable. The tighter the cord, the more each person feels the other's state. This is not fantasy. It's lived. It's why you can sense when a certain person is upset before they speak. It's why you can feel pulled toward fixing them. It's why their mood can hijack your day even when they're not present. The attachment line stays active. Now, not all cords are bad. Some are natural. Love creates connection. Family creates connection. Shared history creates connection. The problem isn't connection. The problem is unconscious connection. The problem is when a cord becomes a pipeline for emotional discharge rather than a bridge for mutual presence. That's the difference between intimacy and enmeshment. Intimacy says, I can be with you. Enmeshment says, I must carry you. And here's where the mythic grandeur returns, because this is not merely interpersonal. It's archetypal. In every era, there are people who become the carriers. The ones who hold the family's unspoken grief. The ones who absorb the group's anxiety. The ones who become the emotional landfill so everyone else can stay functional. In ancient communities, those carriers sometimes became priests, healers, or scapegoats. In modern life, they become the therapist friend, the reliable employee, the responsible sibling, the partner who always understands. The role looks respectable, but the cost is often hidden until the body starts to rebel. The body rebels in predictable ways. Chronic fatigue, brain fog, unexplained irritability, a sense of heaviness that isn't linked to your actual circumstances. Difficulty making decisions because your inner compass is crowded with other people's wants. Even sudden cravings, food, scrolling, distraction, because your system is trying to numb the overload. These are not random symptoms. They are boundary alarms. The esoteric traditions would say your field is congested, that you've accumulated residue, that your aura is carrying signatures that don't belong to you. Psychology would say you're dysregulated from chronic emotional labor. Again, two languages, same diagnosis. You've been doing invisible work, and it's exhausting. So how do energies actually stick in the moment? Pay attention to the sequence. It usually begins with a micro-opening, a subtle surrender in the body. Your breath shifts. Your posture softens in a way that isn't relaxation, but submission. Your mind moves from presence into scanning. What do they need? What should I say? How can I make this better? That scanning is the doorway. Scanning is attention tethered to fear, and fear-linked attention is adhesive. Then comes identification. You start to feel what they feel, and you forget that you're feeling it. You become it. The boundary dissolves. Your nervous system runs their program. Then comes the contract reinforcement. You do something, offer reassurance, agree to something you don't want, take responsibility, apologize, fix. The other person relaxes. Your system registers relief, and the pattern locks in deeper. This is why simply telling yourself, "don't absorb," rarely works. The absorption isn't a conscious choice. It's an old strategy. It was learned in environments where you had limited power. It's wired into the body's attempt to prevent danger. So to change it, you need something stronger than willpower. You need a new experience of safety that does not require merging. You need to train your system to stay present without becoming porous. You need a method that speaks to both the mind and the body, both the psychological and the esoteric. And this is where Thoth's energy armor begins to make more sense. Because what is armor really in this context? Not a wall, not a cage. Armor is a structure that allows contact without injury. It allows you to move through the world without being pierced by every stray emotion. But before we build it, there's one more subtle trap to name, because it's the reason many sensitive people fail at boundaries, even when they understand the theory. They confuse boundaries with rejection. If you grew up in a world where saying no meant punishment, withdrawal, or shame, then setting a boundary will feel like violence, even when it's healthy. You'll feel like you're hurting someone. You'll feel like you're being cold. You'll feel like you're abandoning them. That feeling is not proof that the boundary is wrong. It's proof that your system was trained to equate self-protection with danger. This is why you can intellectually know it's not my job to fix them, and still feel compelled to fix. Compulsion is the nervous system trying to avoid the old consequence. Esoteric traditions describe something similar. Certain cords tighten when you attempt to pull back. The field reacts. The other person may become more needy, more upset, more dramatic. Not always intentionally, sometimes unconsciously, because the old system relied on your permeability. When you shift, the system panics. That panic is not a sign you should return to the old role. It's a sign the old role was holding more than it should have been holding. So if you want to understand why energies stick, stop focusing only on them. Focus on the system between you. Focus on what the bond has been used for. Has it been used for mutual sharing? Or has it been used for discharge? Has your presence been met with reciprocity? Or has it been consumed like a resource? These questions are not meant to make you cynical. They're meant to make you clear. Because clarity is the solvent. Clarity dissolves false ownership. Clarity reveals the contract. Clarity is the first layer of armor. Not the shiny kind, but the kind that makes you stop accepting packages that were never addressed to you. And once you can see the mechanism, how fear opens the gate, how attention tethers, how identification collapses the boundary, you're ready for the next movement, the one that feels almost like stepping into a different geometry of being. Something disciplined, something elegant, something that doesn't require you to stop caring, only to stop leaking. That is where we go next. Into the forging itself, into the strange and luminous craft of building an inner structure that keeps your heart open and your field sovereign, as if Thoth's temple has been quietly waiting inside you all along. So now you can feel the mechanism, almost like watching gears turn behind glass. Fear opens the gate. Attention tethers. Identification blurs the line. The old contract renews itself in a single breath you didn't notice you were holding. And the moment you see it clearly, a different possibility appears, quiet, steady, almost austere in its beauty. Thoth's protection isn't a dramatic force field. It's a craft. It's the art of giving your sensitivity a structure. Return, for a moment, to the image of the scribe's desk, the palette, the reed, the calm lamplight that doesn't flicker with every passing mood. That room has something most of us are starving for: containment. Not isolation, not numbness, containment. A space where truth can be held without being drowned in other people's weather. That's what you're building now inside your own field. And let the word armor soften. This is not a shell to keep people out. It's a shape that keeps you in, a form that allows touch without invasion, a boundary that lets love pass through while letting chaos slide off. The emerald in this geometry isn't a superstition or a costume. It's a tone your body can recognize. Heart-centered, steady, not frantic. It's the color many people naturally associate with restoration, balance, and clear seeing. And clear seeing is the beginning of any real protection. So begin with what is simplest and most powerful. The breath. Use as a line you can draw. Inhale without grabbing. Exhale without pushing. Let your breath be ordinary and let your attention be exact. Notice how your body already knows boundaries. Skin is a boundary. Ribcage is a boundary. Even the diaphragm is a gate that opens and closes on rhythm. You're not boundaryless by nature. You became boundaryless by training. As you breathe, sense the outline of yourself, not as a picture, but as a felt edge. The place where your body meets space. The pressure at your feet, the temperature at your hands, the quiet perimeter you usually ignore until someone's intensity slams into it. Simply acknowledge, this is my space. Now bring in the first Thoth-like act, naming with precision. Not as drama, not as blame, but as clean categorizing. My breath, my heartbeat, my attention, my choice. And then equally clean what is not yours. Their reaction, their urgency, their disappointment, their unspoken hunger. You don't have to dislike them to separate from them. A scribe can sort without cruelty. If fear rises, if I don't carry it, who will? Let it rise. Don't wrestle it. Steady your hand. Let your exhale lengthen just a little and feel how the body loosens when it realizes it doesn't have to sign every contract. Now we shape the geometry. Many people imagine protection as a circle, and a circle is a good beginning, a clear perimeter. But the armor we're forging has an added quality, order within the perimeter. Not only a line, but a pattern, something that distributes pressure so you don't have to. Imagine, as naturally as you can, a faint emerald outline forming around you at arm's length. Not a hard wall, more like a translucent boundary that moves with your breath. Alive, responsive, calm. Inside that outline, let a subtle architecture appear as if the air has decided to become organized. You might sense it as a honeycomb pattern, the way nature builds strength without heaviness. Or you might sense it like the ruled lines of a page, the scribe's page, where meaning can land without smearing. Don't strain to see it. Let it be more felt than visual, a quiet structure that holds you together. Now, give the structure a function with one clear sentence, spoken inwardly like a seal. Only what is mine may stay. Feel how different that is from begging. Begging makes you dependent. A rule makes you sovereign. Then add the second sentence, the one that keeps you human and open. All else may pass through without lodging. You're not rejecting the world. You're refusing occupancy. You're allowing contact without attachment. Now, test it gently. Bring to mind a recent moment where you absorbed someone, nothing extreme, just a clear example. A conversation where you walked away feeling responsible for their feelings. As you remember it, watch what your body wants to do. Usually it tries to merge. It tightens. It starts to become the container again. When you feel that pull, don't push it away. Name it softly, this is the pull. And then, on your exhale, imagine the pull touching the emerald boundary and sliding off like rain on smooth stone. No anger, no argument, no dramatic return to sender. Just a simple refusal to be the sponge. If grief appears, welcome it. Many sensitive people use carrying as proof of love. Letting the burden slide off can feel like betrayal, as if you're abandoning a sacred duty. But that grief is not a warning that you're doing harm. It's the sound of an identity shifting. Breathe through it. Grief can belong to you when it's about your own life. What doesn't belong to you doesn't need to be stored in your ribs. Now bring in Thoth's deeper method, the word as a stabilizer. In the old imagination, A written seal wasn't decoration. It was authority, something that made a boundary difficult to argue with, even inside your own mind. You can create that authority with a phrase that your nervous system can remember when you're under pressure. Choose something clean and short, not aggressive. I can care without carrying. Or, I witness, I do not absorb. Or even the simplest, not mine. Then pair it with a breath. Each time you exhale, repeat the phrase inwardly. Breath becomes stamp. Phrase becomes ink. The rule becomes familiar. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. When you're stressed, you don't rise to your ideals. You fall to your training. So you're training. You are rehearsing sovereignty in calm moments so your body can find it in real ones. Let the emerald geometry align along your spine now, like a quiet column that keeps you upright inside yourself. Not a rigid pole, but a plumb line, something that tells you what centered feels like. When you start to merge with someone, you tilt toward them. You abandon your own axis to manage theirs. The column gives you a place to return. And in that return, a practical miracle becomes visible. You can finally feel the difference between compassion and compulsion. Compassion feels open and spacious. Compulsion feels tight and urgent. Compassion can listen. Compulsion must fix. Your armor doesn't kill compassion. It removes compulsion. Stay there for a breath. Let that difference become real in your body, not just as an idea. Now grant yourself the final ingredient, the one most people wait years to receive from someone else. Permission. Inhale and feel the boundary brighten. Not flare, not threaten, just become steady. Exhale and say inwardly, I am allowed to be intact. Not I hope, not maybe, allowed. And notice what happens when you accept that permission as fact. Your sensitivity doesn't vanish. It clarifies. You begin to move through life less like a sponge and more like a lantern. You illuminate what is present without soaking it into your identity. You can be close without being colonized. This is the grandeur of it. Not special effects, but rightful order returning. Chaos no longer writes on your page. Other people's storms no longer use your body as a notebook. The scribe is back at the desk. The hand is steady. The ink is yours. You are not becoming less tender. You are becoming more exact. And that exactness, quiet, emerald, disciplined, is what makes the armor real. With that emerald geometry set, you start to notice something immediately. The world doesn't get quieter. You do. Life still has sharp voices and needy silences. People still arrive with their storms. Families still speak in old codes. Crowds still hum like a living organism. The difference is that you no longer have to become the weather in order to read the weather. And this is where the armor proves whether it's real. Because it's easy to feel sovereign in a calm room. The true test is a difficult conversation, the kind that used to pull you out of your spine. A friend calls, and the first thing you hear isn't a greeting, it's urgency. Their words tumble out, fast and tight, and you can feel their anxiety reaching for your body the way hands reach for a railing in a storm. In the past, your system would have opened without asking. Breath would shorten. Mind would start sprinting. You'd begin offering solutions before you even understood the problem. Not because you're wise, but because you were trying to stop the feeling from spreading. Now you catch the first signal, the micro-opening. That subtle surrender. The tiny tilt away from your own center. And right there, before you say anything, you remember Thoth's hand. Steady, measured, recording without drowning. You inhale without grabbing. You feel the column of your spine align, as if something ancient inside you stands upright. You let the emerald boundary become present at arm's length, not as a wall between you, but as a rule that keeps you from being recruited. Only what is mine may stay. All else may pass through without lodging. Then you speak in a way that changes everything, even if the words are ordinary. You slow down. You ask one clarifying question instead of 10 frantic ones. You let silence exist without filling it. You listen like a witness, not like an unpaid emergency service. This is the first field test, slowing the tempo. An anxious person often tries to pull you into speed because speed is how their nervous system survives. Speed creates the illusion of control. But when you match their speed, you step into their storm. When you hold your own tempo, you become a calm shore they can touch without dragging you into the water. And something strange happens. They may resist at first. They may push harder. They may escalate because the old pattern used your absorption as fuel. But if you stay steady, truly steady, your calm becomes contagious in the opposite direction. Not because you're trying to manipulate them, but because a regulated system naturally offers a rhythm that an unregulated system can entrain to. You're not fixing them. You're refusing to be hijacked. Another test arrives in the shape of conflict, not panic. Someone is disappointed in you. Their tone changes. The room chills. A sentence drops like a stone. Wow, I didn't expect that from you. If you've lived with guilt as your compass, this is where the old contract would leap alive. Your body would feel responsible for their feeling. You'd scramble to explain, apologize, soften, retract, whatever it takes to restore their comfort, even at the cost of your truth. Here's what armor looks like in that moment. It looks like a small pause that feels almost illegal. You let their disappointment exist without making it your job. You feel the impulse to fix rise like a wave, and instead of becoming the wave, you name it the pull. You exhale and let the pull touch the emerald boundary and slide off. Not mine. Then you answer from your spine, not from your fear. Your voice stays level. Your words stay simple. You don't over-justify. Over-justifying is often a ritual of surrender, a way of begging permission to have your own boundary. You might say calmly, I hear you, and you mean it. Witnessing is not rejection. You might add, this is what I can do, and this is what I can't. And then you stop. You let the silence do its work. That silence is another field test, because people who are used to your permeability are often addicted to your explanations. Explanations are a doorway they can push through. If you explain long enough, you eventually explain yourself out of your own boundary. But when you become concise, you become ungrabbable. Not cold, not cruel, just ungrabbable. If they accuse you of changing, you let that sentence land on the armor and not under your skin. Of course you're changing. You're becoming intact. Now take the armor into a crowd, where no single person is the storm, but the whole environment has a mood. A busy mall, a packed event, a loud gathering. Some places feel like emotional weather systems. You enter, and within minutes you feel your own inner sky changing, as if the room is tuning you like an instrument. This is not imagination. Your nervous system is reading hundreds of cues at once. It's catching fragments, stress, excitement, impatience, hunger, loneliness. Sensitive people can absorb that composite signal and call it my anxiety when it's really the room's frequency running through them. The armor here becomes less about interpersonal boundaries and more about field boundaries. As you walk, keep your breath gentle and steady. Feel the edge of your body as your true address. Let your awareness rest in your feet for a moment, as if you are anchoring into the earth rather than into the collective mood. The emerald geometry doesn't need to be visual now. It could be a simple sense of I am here and I am not the room. You'll notice a temptation in crowds. The mind wants to scan for threats. That scanning is attention tethered to fear, the stickiest kind. So instead of scanning outward like a spotlight, soften your gaze. Let your eyes take in shapes without chasing meanings. Let sounds be sounds without turning into stories. You are still aware, but you're no longer hunting. Thoth doesn't hunt. He observes. And then, when you leave the crowd, notice what you usually do. Many people carry the room home, like dust on their clothes. They sit on their couch and still feel the crowd inside their chest. Armor means you end a visit. As you step away, take one deliberate exhale and imagine the room's residue sliding off you like a coat you no longer wear. Not with drama, with simple completion. Not mine. Then comes the oldest test of all, family. Not because family is always harmful, but because family is often where your contracts were first signed. Family systems have gravity. You can walk into a room and suddenly become your childhood role without choosing it. The caretaker, The translator, the one who smooths everything over, the one who absorbs tension so others can pretend nothing is wrong. Even if everyone is smiling, your body remembers what those smiles used to hide. Armor in family settings can feel like heresy at first, because the family may unconsciously rely on your permeability to keep the system stable. When you stop absorbing, the system has to feel itself, and systems don't like to feel themselves. A relative makes a comment that's designed to hook you. A small jab, a guilt-laced after everything we've done for you, a passive-aggressive sigh that invites you to chase them. This is where you use to lose your center, because the hook isn't just the words, it's the history inside the words. The armor here is not about winning. It's about not being recruited into the old story. You feel the hook arrive and you don't bite. You breathe. You feel your spine. You stay with the simple truth of the present moment. I am an adult in this room. The past does not own my body. Then you respond like a scribe, not like a child trying to earn safety. Calm, brief, clear. You can acknowledge without surrendering. You can say, I hear that you're upset, without saying, you're right and I'm wrong. You can say, I'm not discussing this right now, without performing rage or apology. You can choose to leave the room without making a speech. Silence, again, becomes sacred, and there's a deeper layer. Sometimes the family test isn't the obvious conflict. Sometimes it's the subtle emotional dumping. The relative who always calls to unload. The parent who makes their loneliness your job. The sibling who uses you as a confession booth and never asks about your life. The old contract says, be available, be absorbing, be endlessly understanding. Armor rewrites it without cruelty. You can offer a limit with warmth. You can say, I have 10 minutes and mean it. You can say, I can listen, but I can't carry this for you. And let that be true even if they don't like it. This is where many sensitive people panic because they equate they don't like it with I did something wrong. But dislike is not a verdict. It's a reaction. Your job is not to eliminate reactions. Your job is to stay in integrity. And integrity has a feeling. It's quieter than guilt. It's steadier than approval. It lives in the spine and the breath and the clean, internal knowing I did not abandon them. I stopped abandoning myself. One more test appears in the most intimate setting. One-on-one with someone you love. Someone whose emotions you can sense before they speak. If they're upset, you feel it. If they're distant, you feel it. If they're anxious, your body starts preparing to manage it. This is where armor must become tender, not rigid. Because you don't want to be a stone. You want to be present. So you practice the most nuanced boundary of all, staying open without merging. You might say, I can feel something's off. Do you want to talk? That's openness. And then you add, inwardly, as you listen, I witness, I do not absorb. You let them have their experience. You don't rush to fix it. You don't turn their feeling into an emergency. You let the emotion move through the conversation without lodging in your identity. And if they try to hand it to you, if they try to make you responsible, you notice the handoff. You stay kind, but you don't accept the package. You can say, I care about you, and I'm here. And this part is yours to feel. That sentence is not abandonment. It's respect. It's the respect of believing they are strong enough to hold their own inner life. This is what the armor is actually protecting, your ability to love without losing yourself. And as you begin to pass these field tests, conversation by conversation, room by room, you'll notice the most mysterious reward. Your intuition becomes cleaner. Your compassion becomes deeper, because you're no longer flooded with borrowed noise. The page is clear. The ink is yours. You can finally read your own life again. And now the last quiet question rises, because it always does. Even if you can hold your boundary in a conversation, even if you can walk through crowds without taking the room home, even if you can face family gravity without becoming a child again, how do you live like this every day without becoming rigid, suspicious, or exhausted by the effort? How do you keep your heart open and still stay sovereign? This is where the armor stops being a technique and becomes a way of being. It becomes less like something you put on and more like something you remember. You stop treating boundaries like a battle and start treating them like hygiene. You stop waiting until you're overwhelmed to protect yourself and begin tending your field the way you tend your body. Small, consistent, almost unremarkable act that build a life that doesn't leak. The first secret is that you don't maintain armor through tension. Tension is not protection. Tension is another form of absorption. When you tense, you are bracing against the world, and bracing is exhausting. Thoth protection is not bracing. It is structure without strain. The kind of strength you see in a bridge. It holds weight, but it does not panic about holding. So the foundation of sustaining this is regulation. Your nervous system learning over and over that you can stay present without merging. That means your daily practice cannot be something that makes you feel like you're fighting yourself. It has to feel like returning, like cleaning a window, like clearing the page before you write. Begin each day with a single breath done consciously. Not because one breath fixes everything, but because one breath marks the difference between unconscious living and conscious living. That breath is your scribe signature. It says, I'm here. I'm in my body. I'm not already inside someone else's mood. Then, without ceremony, remember the rule. Only what is mine may stay. All else may pass through without lodging. You don't have to visualize emerald light for 10 minutes. You don't have to make it theatrical. The more natural it becomes, the more powerful it becomes. Armor that requires constant effort is not armor. It's performance. Real protection is quiet. It sits under your day like a steady rhythm. Now, throughout the day, there will be moments where you feel the old contract trying to reappear. It often arrives disguised as urgency. A message that feels like it needs an immediate reply. A look from someone that suggests you've disappointed them. A shift in a room that makes your system want to fix the vibe. Here is the sustaining move. You pause before you pay. In that pause, you ask the Thoth question again, not as a dramatic ritual, but as a simple check. Is this mine? And then you wait for the body's answer. Because the body knows. It tightens in one specific way when you're about to abandon yourself. It has a distinct sensation, like leaning forward inside your skin, like giving away your center. That sensation is your cue. When you notice it, you don't have to confront anyone. You don't have to explain. You simply return to your axis. You feel your feet. You feel your spine. You feel the outline of your own space. And you let the borrowed signal slide off the boundary. This is what compassion without absorption looks like in practice. It's not a grand declaration. It's a micro-return again and again until it becomes your default. And there's another secret that most people miss because it sounds too simple. You must stop using guilt as proof of goodness. Guilt is one of the stickiest substances in human relationships. It's a leash that can be held by anyone who learns how to tug it. If you've been trained to equate guilt with love, meaning if I feel guilty, it means I care, then you will always be vulnerable to emotional manipulation, even unintentional manipulation. People will not even have to ask you to carry them. Your guilt will volunteer. So sustaining the armor requires a new definition of goodness. Goodness is not carrying what isn't yours. Goodness is being truthful, being kind, and being clear. Goodness is letting other adults own their emotions. Goodness is not rescuing people from the consequences of their own inner life at the cost of your health. This is where the mythic frame helps again, because Thoth's devotion is not to pleasing everyone. His devotion is to Ma'at, balance, truth, order. When you align with that, you stop measuring yourself by whether everyone feels comfortable around you. You begin measuring yourself by whether you stayed aligned with what is true. Truth does not always feel nice, but truth is clean, and clean is sustainable. Now let's talk about compassion, because many people misunderstand it. Compassion is often imagined as emotional merging. I feel your pain, therefore I am compassionate. But there's a deeper compassion, the kind that can be present with pain without drowning in it. The kind that respects the other person's strength. The kind that doesn't steal their growth by carrying their lessons for them. If you want a simple test, Listen to the difference between these two inner sentences. The first says, I can't stand them feeling this. The second says, I can be with them while they feel this. The first is absorption. The second is compassion. Absorption is actually self-focused in a subtle way because it is driven by your discomfort with their discomfort. It urges you to fix, not always for them, but to stop the tension you feel inside yourself. Compassion is other-focused in the healthiest sense. It creates space for their experience without needing to control it. So one sustaining ritual is learning to tolerate emotional weather without acting on it. That is a spiritual practice. It is also a psychological one. It strengthens your nervous system's capacity to be present, and it breaks the old contract at its root. If there is discomfort, I must erase it. No, discomfort can exist. It can move. It can pass. You can remain intact. Now, there's an important piece here, because the armor is not only about what comes from other people. It's also about what rises from within you. Your own internalized voices, your own inherited burdens, your own old fears that masquerade as moral obligations. Sometimes the most invasive energy is not someone else's mood in the room. It's the echo of someone else's expectations living in your head. A parent's disappointment that you still hear even when they're not speaking. A culture's demand that you be selfless. A role you were assigned, caretaker, achiever, mediator, that became an identity. These internal energies stick because they were repeated so often they became familiar. Sustaining the armor means you turn the scribe's lamp inward. When an inner voice says, you should, you ask, whose voice is that? When guilt says, you ask, what contract is that? When fear says, if you don't fix it, you'll be rejected, you ask, how old is that fear? This is not analysis for its own sake. It's liberation. Because if the inner voice is not truly yours, you can stop treating it like law. You can record it without obeying it. That is Thoth's method again, witnessing without absorption. Now, because you're human, there will be days when you slip. There will be moments when you find yourself carrying again before you notice. The sustaining practice is not perfection. It's recovery speed. How quickly can you come back to yourself? When you realize you've absorbed, don't punish yourself. Punishment is another form of entanglement. It keeps you in the contract by turning it into shame. Instead, do what a scribe does when ink spills. You clean the page. You can do it in 30 seconds. Stop. Exhale slowly. Feel your feet. Then what's happening? I picked up something. Then choose, not mine. And imagine it leaving, not forcefully, but completely. Like setting down a bag you were never meant to carry. Then, and this part matters, do something physical to anchor the return. Shake out your hands. Roll your shoulders. Drink water. Step outside and feel air on your face. The body loves concrete signals. They tell the nervous system, we're done with that now. That's why daily movement is not just fitness. It's spiritual hygiene. It moves stagnant charge. It clears residue. It keeps your system from becoming a storage unit for other people's emotional leftovers. Sleep matters too. Not in a preachy way, but in a practical way. When you're tired, you're more porous. Your boundaries weaken. Your patience thins. Your old contracts become easier to trigger. Rest is not indulgence. Rest is reinforcement. So the sustaining path looks surprisingly humble. Breath, sleep, movement, clarity, small pauses before agreement, short phrases that recenter you. It's not glamorous, and that's why it works. It becomes part of your life rather than a ritual you only perform when you're desperate. And then, as this becomes normal, another profound shift happens. Your relationships begin to change. Some relationships will deepen because they were waiting for the real you. They were built on mutual presence, not on your self-erasure. When you stop absorbing, you show up cleaner, clearer, more available in the true sense. Available to connect, not available to be used. Those connections often become more honest, more spacious, more alive. Other relationships will strain, not necessarily because the people are evil, but because the bond relied on your permeability. Your role as carrier was part of the structure. When you step out of it, the structure wobbles. This is where many people get scared and retreat back into the old contract. They interpret wobbling as danger. But wobbling is not collapse. Wobbling is reorganization. If a relationship can only survive when you carry what isn't yours, it is not a relationship of love. It is a relationship of extraction. That may sound harsh, but it's clean. And clean is what you need. Now, there's one final spiritual refinement, something that feels almost like the crown of the armor. It's the ability to bless without absorbing. To look at someone's pain and silently wish them well without taking it into your body. To witness someone struggle and still remain steady. To offer help when it is truly yours to offer, and to refrain when it would be self-abandonment. To be compassionate without becoming a dumping ground. This is sovereignty with softness. And the soft part matters, because many people, when they discover boundaries, swing too far. They become harsh. They become guarded. They confuse protection with superiority. That is not Thoth's way. The scribe doesn't scoff at the world. He simply refuses to be possessed by it. So keep a tenderness in the armor. Let the emerald tone stay heart-centered. Let your boundaries be shaped by respect, not resentment. Respect for yourself, and respect for others as beings capable of holding their own lives. When you live like that, something almost mystical happens. You become less tired. Not because life has fewer demands, but because you're no longer doing invisible labor for everyone else's emotions. Your energy returns to you. Your intuition sharpens. Your creativity comes back. Your nervous system begins to experience a kind of quiet relief it didn't know was possible. And in that relief, you understand the deeper meaning of the title you began with. Stop carrying what isn't yours. It's not a slogan. It's a spiritual law. When you carry what isn't yours, you violate the natural order. When you return it, you restore Ma'at, balance. You restore truth. You become, in your own life, the calm witness with the steady hand. Now, as promised, we end not with a jolt, but with a slow descent, a wind down that lets the armor settle into your bones like something you've always known. In the quiet after all this, notice the simplicity of what you're really choosing. You're not choosing to be less loving. You're choosing to be less invaded. You're not choosing to abandon people. You're choosing to stop abandoning yourself. That is not selfishness. That is sanity. That is sacred order. Imagine Thoth once more, not as a distant figure, but as a presence inside your own awareness. The reed pen in hand, the page clean. He doesn't rush you. He doesn't demand perfection. He simply offers you a way to remain yourself in a world that constantly invites you to disappear. And maybe tonight you practice it in the smallest way. One breath before you answer a message. One pause before you explain. One moment where you feel your feet and remember your edge. The world will still move. People will still feel what they feel. But you'll begin to live from a different center, one that doesn't collapse when a room gets loud. If you notice heaviness tomorrow, don't panic. Don't build a story about what it means. Just ask the question again, softly, like a key turning in a lock. Is this mine? And if it isn't, let it pass. Let slide off the emerald geometry. Let the page stay clean. Because you were never meant to be the place where everyone else stores what they refuse to face. You were meant to be a human being, open, present, compassionate, and intact. A lantern, not a sponge. A witness, not a warehouse. And in that intactness, you will find something that feels like quiet magnificence, the freedom to belong to yourself. If you stayed with me this far, you can feel the shift already, the moment you stop being a sponge and start becoming the witness again. So let's seal the page like Thoth would, with a clean, living sentence. Drop a comment below with the phrase, "Only what is mine may stay." Let it be your boundary in ink, your quiet vow to your own nervous system, your signal that from this point forward you will care deeply, without carrying what was never yours.